a bridge between the international community and women in science through linking their knowledge and expertise and its applications in a systematic, critical way for the 2030 Agenda and its 17 global goals. Gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls will make a crucial contribution not only to the economic development of the world, but to progress across all the goals and targets of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as well. Women are equal partners in the society, and in fact, no country can become Atmanirbhar without their active participation in all walks of life, including science and technology and innovation. In fact, whereas men think only about complex solutions, women innovate with application of an innovation in the society, which makes the world a better place to live. Science has long been referred to as a male-dominated stream, but over the years, women have been breaking stereotypes to carve their niche in this domain. So today, at this occasion, we are honored to have with us two leading women from the field of science, Dr. Neelima Jairath, the first woman to head a science city in India, and Dr. G.C. Anupama, the first woman president of the Astronomical Society of India. I warmly welcome you, ma'am. It is a matter of pride for us to have you here today. I also welcome all our participants, teachers, and students. So now I request our Director General, Madam, to please address our participants. Dr. Neelima Jairath, she is Director General Pushpa Gujral Science City. Prior to joining as DG Science City, she was Executive Director, Punjab State Council for Science and Technology, and Founder Member Secretary of State Biodiversity and State Innovation Council, and has been instrumental in establishing the Patent Information Center, Climate Change Knowledge Center, Envis Center, and Regional Center for Education and Sustainable Development. Pushpa Gujral Science City received the National Award for Science Communication in 2016 under her leadership. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, lovely. And once again, a very good afternoon, Dr. Anupama. All my colleagues at PGSC, dear children, dear teachers, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. It is indeed an honor and a great pleasure for me to be speaking at this occasion, an occasion when we celebrate women and girls in science. I have a brief presentation, so I think I'll share my screen. So is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay. So in Punjabi, there is a very common saying that kudiyan hai chidiyan, which means girls are little birds. So these little birds, when they fly, they rise high. And in science also, these little birds have proven their mettle. I would like to keep this talk interactive. If possible, jo bhi main puchangi, I would request ki jehde students hai, jehde teachers hai, they may like to communicate on chat, ya ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਲਈ unmute ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ. So what I want to talk to you first of all is, ये पहचानो की है, ये क्या है, कौन पहचान सकता है? आपने देखा है ये? जी हाँ, बोलिए कोहिनूर जी, चैट में आप लिख सकते हैं. कोई इसको मॉनिटर करेगा प्लीज? लवलीन, आप इसको मॉनिटर करोगे?
हाँ जी बच्चे, आई हैव अनम्यूटेड यू, बोलिए. जसमीत
मैम, इट इज डीएनए.
यस, तो अब मेरे दूसरे सवाल का जवाब दो. इसको किसने डिस्कवर किया? ये स्ट्रक्चर है डीएनए का. ये स्ट्रक्चर किसने देखा सबसे पहले? नाम पता है? इनको पहचानते हो? ये हैं जेम्स वॉटसन एंड फ्रांसिस क्रिक, जिनको इस डीएनए स्ट्रक्चर को बताने के लिए नोबेल प्राइज मिला था। पर एक चीज बताओ कि ये कौन है? ये पिक्चर कभी देखी है? नहीं देखी। She is Rosalind Franklin, and Rosalind Franklin is a crystallography expert who took the picture, which is known as the picture 51, which is an X-ray photo of DNA. और ये फोटो लेना अपने आप में एक चैलेंज था, और इसको इंटरप्रेट करना और भी बड़ा चैलेंज था। रोजलिंड फ्रैंकलिन को 1 साल लगा था इस फोटो को इंटरप्रेट करने में। और जब रोजलिंड फ्रैंकलिन जब काम कर रही थी, तो वॉटसन एंड क्रिक वर वर्किंग साइमल्टेनियसली along with another worker, Morris Wilkins, and they and Rosalind independently published their works at the same time in the same journal in the same volume. Watson and Crick were recognized with a Nobel Prize. Somehow, Rosalind's name was not there. Now that everybody felt was an unfortunate situation. Rosalind के और भी बहुत सारे काम थे। उन्होंने कोल का स्ट्रक्चर देखा था, उन्होंने ब्रिटेन को हेल्प किया था गैस मास्क बनाने में बेस्ड ऑन द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ कोल। वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 में गैस मास्क की जरूरत पड़ी थी। शी ऑल्सो वर्कड ऑन RNA, and we all know that the viruses are RNA. So based on her work on RNA, Aaron Klug could create a 3D image of a virus, for which he got the Nobel Prize. His work was based again on Rosalind's work, but Rosalind died unsung. It was later that her contributions were known outside the scientific circles. Organizers, you can mute everybody. So we all know, children, that science and technology has a lot of impact on human life. We may look at any aspect of our lives and we know that there is science and technology there. But then it is believed that there are these 5 major S&T interventions which have impacted women. And the intervention at number 1 is birth control pills, which empowered women to choose the time when they want to become mothers. There were another interventions were home water supply system, electricity, which gave women a lot of me time after their household work. It reduced the drudgery of work. Then bicycles or wheels, I would say. Wheels have impacted human life all the time, but bicycles impacted women's life a lot because they were cheap means of transport which allowed women to go out to work out of their houses. And now we have a lot of communication devices which have again helped women to reach out, to interact with each other, to talk to each other, and also a lot of women, because if all of you know, in the SD Ask program, we have been talking about the women technology parks all over India also. And these women do a lot of business through these communication devices. So women have not only benefited, they have also made many useful innovations which are used by men also. मुझे नहीं पता, अगर आप लोगों को पता हो कि हमें पता है कि कंप्यूटर्स मेन ने बनाए, Babbage is credited with that, but there was a woman, Grace Hopper was a mathematician. She was the one who first identified, realized, and tried to push this, that computers should be made user-friendly. 1980s में, लेट 80s में, अर्ली 90s में जब कंप्यूटर्स हमने डेली रूटीन में यूज करने शुरू किए थे, तो कंप्यूटर लैंग्वेजेस वर सो डिफिकल्ट एंड यूजिंग कंप्यूटर्स वाज वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट एट दैट टाइम. पर अब जब से हमने विंडोज और इस तरह की वो यूज करने शुरू किए हैं systems, we realize how easy they are to use. Then a lot of things women developed, especially those which are related to families and children. For example, fire escape. All over Europe, all over US, घर normally लकड़ी के बने होते हैं, और इन घरों में अगर आपने देखा हो, हर घर के बाहर एक जरूर एक लोहे की सीढ़ी लगी होती है जो बेसिकली फायर एस्केप होती है. एस्पेशली बिकॉज ये एक विमेन ने सोचा, क्योंकि उसे लगा कि जब अगर कभी कोई आग लग जाए तो फैमिली को कैसे बचाया जाए, और ये सीढ़ी हमेशा लोहे की बनी होती है. देन वायरलेस ट्रांसमिशन टेक्नोलॉजी, मेडिकल सिरिंज जो एक हाथ से यूज होती है, मेडिकल सिरिंज जो आजकल हम रूटीन में यूज करते हैं, दैट ऑल्सो वॉज डेवलप्ड बाय अ वुमन. होम सिक्योरिटी सिस्टम, even the fiber which is used to make bulletproof jackets, though that fiber was developed by a chemist who happened to be a woman. Then the windshield wiper of a car, automatic dishwasher, ice cream maker, and very recently the automatic roti maker, and so many other innovations which have been done by women and are being successfully used all over the world. But then some of the women got a lot of recognition also for their work. I begin with Sophie Jermaine. She was a mathematician, and at that time she wanted to join the Maths Academy, but as a girl she was not permitted to join. सिर्फ लड़कों को अलाउड था वहां जाना. तो ये लड़की एक अपने इसने बाल कटवाए और एक लड़के का मेकअप बना के ये हमेशा उधर जाती थी जब भी उसने कोई क्लास अटेंड करनी होती थी, कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस अटेंड करनी होती थी. इसकी बहुत सारी मैथमेटिकल अचीवमेंट्स हैं, एंड शी इज द फर्स्ट वुमन टू बी रिकॉग्नाइज्ड बाय द पेरिस एकेडमी ऑफ साइंसेस. दूसरा मैरी क्यूरी. मैरी क्यूरी के बारे में तो हम सब ने सुना है. First woman to win a Nobel Prize and the only woman to win for both physics and chemistry. Then we have a very, very powerful woman who is working with IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which is, she is the vice chair of a working group there, and her research is on climate variability. एक बार एक मीटिंग में उनके एक मेल कोलीग ने उनको स्नब किया था और कहा था कि प्लीज डोंट कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट मी इन पब्लिक. बट दिस लेडी डिड नॉट लूज हर ग्राउंड. शी कंटिन्यूज टू पेव वे फॉर अदर्स एज अ वॉइस फॉर द अंडर रिप्रेजेंटेड ग्रुप्स. देन द फर्स्ट वुमन टू रिसीव नोबेल प्राइज इन इकोनॉमिक्स was Eleanor Ostrom, and she refuted the idea of tragedy of commons. Tragedy of commons is a theory which says कि अगर बहुत सारे resources हो फिर भी आदमी अपने resources को इकट्ठा करता जाता है. But she worked with Asian and African communities and established कि अगर manage किया जाए, ठीक से manage किया जाए तो resource management communities हमेशा jointly करती हैं. पर ऐसी बहुत सारी लेडीज हैं जिनको सक्सेस मिला, जिनको रिकॉग्निशन मिला, पर इस बहुत सारी ऐसी भी स्टोरीज हैं जहां पे लेडीज को इतना रिकॉग्निशन नहीं मिला, या अगर मिला तो बहुत लेट मिला. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एलिस बॉल, इसने लेप्रेसी पे काम किया. इसने एक मैकेनिज्म डेवलप किया लेप्रेसी का एक इंजेक्शन बनाने के लिए, पर इसके काम को इसके हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट ने अपने नाम पे पब्लिश किया, डीन्स मेथड. It was one of her colleagues who protested, and finally the name of the method was changed from Dean's method to the original Ball's method. तो ऐसे इंसिडेंट्स भी हुए हैं। लीज मिटनर है, ऑस्ट्रियन है, और इन्होंने न्यूक्लियर फ्यूजन, हम सब आजकल न्यूक्लियर फ्यूजन और फिशन की बात करते हैं, न्यूक्लियर फिशन का आइडिया हैंस एंड स्ट्रेसमैन को इन्होंने ही दिया था। हैन को उसके लिए नोबेल प्राइज मिला, पर मेटनर का कहीं नाम नहीं आया। एट द एज ऑफ 86 years, जब वो अपनी पूरी एक्टिव लाइफ जी चुकी थी, उसको फर्मी अवार्ड मिला। और आई पर्सनली फील कि उस एज में उसको वो थोड़ी सी रिकॉग्निशन मिली जरूर, बट परहैप्स इट वाजंट इनफ। जब वो एक्टिव काम कर रही थी उस टाइम वो रिकॉग्निशन मिलनी चाहिए थी। सिमिलरली ये अमेरिकन नर्स थी बेसी। बेसी ने people with disabilities के लिए she had developed a lot of devices, but she wanted to mass produce them. She wanted to go further, but she did not get the requisite support. So instead of selling her patent to a company to earn money, she just donated it to the government so that the whole of humanity can benefit from that. There are so many other examples. I can't go into all of them. But then there have been a lot of Indian women also over the years who have got this recognition, whether early, whether late. Janaki Amal, we all have heard about her. She's a Padma Shri recipient. Kamal Ranadev. She set up the first tissue culture lab in the country. She set up the Indian Cancer Research Center. And she also got a Padma Bhushan. Then we have Asima Chatterjee, who again was a Padma Bhushan recipient. And she was the general president of the Indian Science Congress Association. We have Rajeshwari Chatterjee. Rajeshwari did not get a formal award per se, but she was recognized as one of the first women achievers, and she was the first woman to be appointed as a member of the faculty at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. She did a lot of pioneering work in electrical engineering. But then again, in India also, there were many women whose contribution to SNT has remained unrecognized. For example, Kamla Sohoni. Kamla Sohoni was the first Indian woman to get a PhD in science. She wanted to join the Indian Institute of Science to do her master's. But at that time, Indian Institute of Science did not allow women to enter. Because she was very, very persistent, she was allowed finally, but with a lot of do's and don'ts, which actually did not let her prosper. And very soon, the moment she finished her master's, she went to Cambridge, and based on the kind of work which she did there and the kind of contributions that she made to science and technology, IISc opened its doors for women. So she was, her contribution to SNT in India is pioneering, because it is because of her that women can now work there and also study there. Then Bibha Chaudhary, again, she was handpicked to join the TIFR. She was the first woman researcher. She did a lot of work on subatomic particles, but somehow she never won an award. It's only after 27 years of her death that her contribution was recognized, and now a star is named after her. So friends, science and technology, as we know, has been a male-dominated field. I remember that when I was studying, if you are a boy, you can do engineering, you can become a doctor, you can become a police officer, you can become a forester, you can go to administration. But if you are a female, the maximum you can do is become a doctor. And if you are a doctor, become a gynecologist or a teacher or a nurse. And the best job was considered at that time was to be a teacher, because that was a job with limited working hours. Even the Nobel Prize gender gap, if you look at it, up till 2020, 876 males versus only 58 males have received the Nobel Prize. And if you look at it carefully, only 4 prizes in physics and 7 in chemistry have gone to females. Rest of them are dominated by males. Throughout the world, before the present century, women were denied entry into many institutions. They were denied the due recognition. They were, even today in US, women are sometimes paid lesser. They have shorter careers. But there is a lot of glass ceiling. There is at the top, but now this is not the case. Everything has changed because women of whom I discussed just now, उन्होंने साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी में इतनी मेजर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशंस दी कि आज हम उनको सिर्फ याद ही नहीं करते, आज हम लोग जहां हैं वो उन्हीं की वजह से हैं. आज this is the face of science and technology throughout the world now. Almost equal participation of both men and women. And in India, a lot of effort is being done to promote women scientists, and 11 women scientists chairs have come up in institutions across India. There are a lot of women-centric schemes. All this is being done to recognize and honor our women who have made pioneering contribution to science and technology when the time was not right, when they were ahead of their times. But then these are our inspiration, and these chairs, only women can join these chairs. There are a lot of schemes like the Kiran scheme, which is the knowledge involvement in research advancement through nurturing, under which we have women in sciences, A, B, and C schemes. There is a WISE scheme. So all these schemes are available on the internet. As you grow up and as you look for these opportunities, do look at these schemes, because there are exclusive women's scholarships also. So the Indian science has also changed from an obscure, unknown person to a lot of bright, smiling, young faces. Women are working as researchers, educators, science administrators, communicators, etc. And many women are breaking the glass ceiling in a male-dominated society. So here I end with the picture of a young girl. She's the youngest assistant professor at IISc Bangalore. These are the girls who are our inspiration. तो आज जो मेरी बात सुन रहे हैं, लड़कियां जो यहाँ बैठी हैं, please be inspired by girls like this. जो लड़के हैं, आप भी याद रखें, हमें वॉटसन एंड क्रिक चाहिए. पर अगर रोजलिंड नहीं होती तो वॉटसन एंड क्रिक शायद ना होते. So हमें रोजलिंड भी चाहिए. So it is the responsibility of all of us to ensure that women get their due, the girls are promoted, the girls are inspired to do well in science. And in the end, I would like to invite you to Pushpa Gujral Science City, where you can learn science in a very, very enjoyable manner. It is a center for edutainment. And once again, thank you very much for your very kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words of wisdom. Your words have always been an inspiration for all of us. And women have been playing a crucial role in science and technology for over a century. And India has a deep pool of talented women in science who have achieved tremendous success in their respective fields. As already mentioned, we have with us one of India's leading observational astronomer, Dr. G.C. Anupama. She is former dean and senior professor, retired at the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, Bangalore. Dr. Anupama was the first woman elected as president of the Astronomical Society of India in 47 years, the only association of professional astronomers in India for the period 2019 to 2022. She has been a key member of the Indian core team engaged in the international project of over 1 billion USD to establish the 30-meter telescope in Hawaii, USA. She led the commissioning and science verification team of the Himalayan Chandra telescope located at the Indian Astronomical Observatory in Hanle, Ladakh. The Hanle Observatory is one of the highest elevation observatories that has been providing valuable data for the scientific community. She has published nearly 200 papers and is the recipient of Government of Karnataka's Sir C.V. Raman Young Scientist Award for the year 2001. Now I request Dr. G.C. Anupama to please address our participants. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. And at the outset, let me thank the Pushpa Gujaral Science Center for inviting me over today. And, I hope I can kind of communicate some of my joys and experience as a scientist. And, I hope I can inspire some of you to become scientists, if not necessarily astronomers. I have a presentation. I will be talking about astronomy, very briefly about astronomy and the kind of career options that one has in the country if you're interested in becoming an astronomer, or if you're interested in becoming an engineer but still want to have some sort of a connect with astronomy. Even then, how is it you can do that? And of course, I'll also talk about a little bit about my own personal journey through my career as an astronomer. I have a very brief presentation. So let me share my presentation. Yeah. So first of all, let me begin with what is astronomy. I'm sure आप सब लोगों को पता है कि astronomy क्या है और astronomers क्या करते हैं. वैसे बोले तो हम लोग तारे देखते हैं. It's an enjoyable profession. It's like you're getting paid to do your hobby. But having said that, it's not just that. There are a lot of other things involved. हम जो करते हैं वो basically it's an encompassment of mathematics, chemistry, biology, everything. All science comes into astronomy. So you can actually call astronomy as, which is a science of the universe, and it's a mother of all sciences, basically. So what do we basically do in astronomy is we collect data from the various sources, astronomical sources, or the sources in the sky, the stars, the galaxies, the near ones, the very far ones, including our sun, the various planets, etc. And the data comes to us basically in the form of electromagnetic radiation. What do you mean by electromagnetic radiation? आप सब लोगों को पता है कि gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, optical, infrared, all this encompasses to become the electromagnetic radiation. And we collect this electromagnetic radiation using telescopes or through detection of cosmic rays, the neutrinos, more recently using gravitational waves. And one can also get a lot of information about the space through meteorites. I'm sure all of you know what meteorites are. These are the falling stars, right? And by the analysis of the chemical composition of these meteorites, you can understand our own solar system or the system from where the meteorites came from, okay? And of course, there's the exploration of the solar system by various artificial satellites. आप सब लोगों को मालूम है कि, there's this rover on Mars. There are these robots walking around Mars and providing excellent pictures of what is the terrain on Mars. And quite unsurprisingly, or I would also say surprisingly, you find that from these pictures that the terrain on Mars, resembles our own Ladakh region. If any one of you has been to the Ladakh region, you will see there are these beautiful mountains, dry desert, cold desert, and the Mars pictures look almost like that. Okay? So one can understand various planets and, the stars and everything through this astronomical data. And for all this, you need an observatory, an astronomical observatory that consists of telescope which collect the radiation in different wavelength regions, in the radio, in the optical, in the infrared, and from the telescopes up in space, like the Hubble Space Telescope or the James Webb Space Telescope. You can observe in the ultraviolet or the infrared regions or other kinds of telescopes which allow you to study in the X-rays or gamma rays. So there is a variety of telescopes that one uses. And all these telescopes are equipped with instruments that analyze the radiation. And finally, there are a variety of detectors that record these analyzed radiation, which we astronomers analyze and understand the physics and the chemistry of all these objects in the sky. So you have ground-based laboratories or observatories, and as well as you have the space-based platforms to do astronomy. So what does it take to become an astronomer? So the basic degree that one is looking for here is obviously a PhD. And in general, for astronomy, one prefers if one has a master's degree in physics, because that gives you a nice background, a broad background. Because generally when somebody is going into physics, you also do in your bachelor's, you do your mathematics and chemistry. And physics is obviously there. So this gives you a broad base for doing astronomy. And a PhD is what one normally is looking for when you want to pursue astronomy as your profession. But there are institutes and universities that also allow students with an engineering background to do that PhD, either in astronomy, PhD in physics, or a PhD in engineering. With that also one can become an astronomer. So how is that? Because modern astronomy requires use of modern and advanced technologies. You need highly advanced technologies for building the telescopes and the instruments. While a person with a PhD in physics analyzes the data, you need these instruments, highly advanced instruments, which necessarily need to be built by people with an engineering background, people who understand what it is to build instruments, what it requires to build instruments, people who are aware of the technology, the improvements in the technology, right? And you also require fast computers, state-of-the-art software to handle the large data that one gets and process these images. So it basically, astronomy requires, astronomical instrumentation requires people with varied engineering skill sets. You need people who understand optics and optomechanics, mechanical engineers, electrical, electronics, computer engineers and computer scientists, people who develop controls and instrumentations, software engineers, data analysts, and people who understand AI, artificial intelligence, is becoming a big thing even in astronomy. In fact, it wouldn't be wrong to say that artificial intelligence has kind of been in astronomy from decades ago. In fact, there are a lot of areas which I would very proudly say began in astronomy. जैसे आप लोग आजकल internet जो use करते हैं, the web, what was called, if you see any URL, internet address, www होता है, where did this originate from? This originated in a scientific lab. Basically in the CERN lab, जहाँ पर Large Hadron Collider है, it originated there. And आजकल अब ये मोबाइल फोन वगैरह और ये डिजिटल कैमरा जो है, CCDs जो है, ये CCDs in fact were brought to the market. Its sensitivity was improved by the demands of astronomers. The astronomers demanded and developed these detectors so that they could detect very low light signal that we receive from very distant objects. And today it has become a commonplace detector. आजकल मोबाइल कैमरा में भी मिलता है ये सब, right? So some of these things is the direct contribution that astronomy has had. Why? Because astronomy requires the highest end technology, including in the civil engineering. One may not know, but the buildings which houses the telescopes, which we call as the domes, they require tremendous amount of highly skilled civil engineering to design them. So it's not just people with a physics background who can participate and become part of the astronomy community. It is also people with engineering background with various skill sets who can become part of the astronomy community. So if you want to become a professional astronomer, there are various institutes in India where research in astronomy is being practiced. And some of the key institutes I've listed out here, which have departments or are totally dedicated for research in astronomy and in the development of various astronomical facilities. These include the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, the Raman Research Institute, the Indian Institute of Science through its joint astronomy program, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Mumbai, National Center for Radio Astrophysics, which runs the Giant Meter Wave Radio Telescope, the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics in Pune, the Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad, the Aryabhatta Research Institute for Observational Sciences in Nainital, and the Indian Institute of Space Technology in Trivandrum, to name some of the astronomy institutes. And there are various universities and other educational institutes like the IITs, the ISERs, the NISER. All of them today offer astronomy as a part of the physics or the science faculty, teaching as well as research. And there are several other universities and colleges where it is being offered. So what was earlier a bastion of a few institutes in the country is now growing. Astronomy is exploding because today India is participating in a lot of international projects, collaborations. So, and astronomy is fascinating for everybody. Everyone loves to look up the sky. You go out to the countryside, on a dark night, it's beautiful, the number of stars you can see. You go up on a mountain without city lights, it's absolutely stunning. So I just want to know how many of you have actually seen the sky, nice dark sky with a lot of stars. How many of you have been outside your city and seen? Okay, so let's take a poll and let's see how many of you raise your hands. And I request Loveleen to make a head count.
Yes, they can post in the chat also.
Yes,
बच्चे
you can post in the
chat
chat.
में भी रख सकते हो.
Please post your comments on the chat.
Yeah, Kohinoorjeet, आप chat में post कर दो.
हाँ, chat में post कीजिए. And after my talk, I want to hear some experience from some of you people on what your experience has been in watching the night sky. Okay, I'd love to hear that from you people. ठीक है? So at IIA itself, the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, जहाँ मैं काम करती थी और अभी भी associated हूँ, we have 2 PhD programs. We don't have any master's program or undergraduate bachelor's program, मगर PhD program है. एक जो astronomy and astrophysics का है, with people with MSc in physics background, PhD करने के लिए. और दूसरा कोर्स है MTech PhD integrated course in astronomical instrumentation. This is a very unique course which offers a chance for the engineering students to become part of the astronomy community. हम लोगों ने IIA ने ये कोर्स पहले शुरू किया और अब ये कोर्स एरीज नैनीताल में भी अवेलेबल है. Apart from this, we have several, we offer fellowships and internships to students who come to do their coursework projects from both the science and engineering backgrounds. There are internship programs up to 6 months and summer project programs. We conduct various schools and workshops, and we also have engineer training programs. Unfortunately, these are all for the people at the undergraduate and graduate level, BSc, MSc, jaise. Or for the school students, we don't run specific programs, but we do encourage the visits by schools to our institute and our field stations, to the observatories. IIA runs several observatories. Optical observatory Tamil Nadu, Kavalur mein hai, aur Kodaikanal mein bhi hai. Kodaikanal, in fact, is the oldest solar observatory in the country. It's more than 125 years. It's almost 125 years old. And we encourage visits by schools, and there are, in fact, especially schools in and around Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and the southern parts. We get nearly 10,000 students visiting these observatories. But we also encourage students from any part of the country, including our observatory in Hanle in Ladakh, which is located at an altitude of 4,500 kilometers. We encourage students, and we have had students from, I think, close to around Delhi visiting the Hanle Observatory. I don't know how many of you may be aware, news may be tha ki Hanle has now been declared as a dark sky reserve. इसका मतलब ये है कि light pollution वैसे ज़्यादा नहीं है वहाँ पर, बहुत ही कम है. But by declaring that region as a dark sky reserve, the government has ensured कि वहाँ पर light pollution नहीं होगा. तो वह ऐसे sanctuaries या dark sky reserves जो है वहाँ पर, you can use those areas. They are preserved for activities like astronomy, and it also has a very good effect on the eco life. जानवरों के लिए भी अगर light pollution ज़्यादा है, it affects the animals also. It affects humans also. So areas like Hanle is the first dark sky reserve in the country. And let me tell you, by my own experience, it's beautiful to visit an observatory to see the beautiful dark sky. Okay. So please talk to your school and try and make a visit to the observatories and see the telescopes and the wonderful skies over there. Now, if you're interested in writing, in science communication, or in journalism, then you can always become a science communicator and an outreach person. जब हम लोग, scientists, if we want to write an article, अगर हम newspaper में article लिखना चाहते हैं, so we are not very effective. Okay, our writing is very dry and very technical, so it doesn't appeal to the common person. And this is where a science communicator will come in. They will communicate the scientific results and the achievements in a manner that is easy to understand, as well as convey the excitement and the importance of the research. This is very important to do that. So if you're interested in becoming a science communicator, there are postgraduate and diploma courses in the country today. There are several organizations, including the government organizations like the Department of Science and Technology, which organize short-term workshops in science writing and journalism. So, as I've said earlier, astronomy is an area that fascinates the public at large, and there are various avenues for outreach, communication, and education in astronomy. Even without becoming a professional astronomer with a PhD, one can still be part of the larger astronomy community. You can become a member of the planetarium. You can be part of a planetarium. There are several planetariums across the country which have, or the science centers like the Pushpa Gujarat Science Center. So these are all the places where, there's a lot of activity going on, which is essentially science communication and outreach, taking the excitement of science to the public at large. And today, realizing the importance of science communication, several institutes, including IAA, have employed people whose main job is science communication. And the International Astronomical Union has also set up an Office for Astronomy Education Center in India, which is hosted by Ayuka in Pune. And this is another center which caters to the public outreach and educating the public on astronomy and science, and the appeal of astronomy. And of course, if you're interested in tourism, then you can indulge in astrotourism. So that is what we are also helping as a part of the Hanley Dark Sky Reserve. We're promoting astrotourism by giving telescopes and training the people in the nearby villages to look at the night sky. And the tourists who go there can actually spend time at these villages looking through the small telescopes and looking at the night sky. So in a nutshell, we need, what does astronomy require? Obviously, astronomers to do the science, but also require scientists and engineers to build telescopes and instruments, scientists and engineers to operate and maintain the facilities, and thereby, and science communicators who disseminate the excitement of the research findings, and thereby it offers career opportunities to a variety of people. So do not think that you necessarily have to have a PhD. You need a PhD if you want to become a professional astronomer. But if you want to do something else and be an astronomer by hobby, you still have a lot of openings to do that. Okay. Now, let me just take you quickly through my own personal journey with astronomy, which essentially began when I was doing my BSc. In 1918, there was this total solar eclipse. And the city of, I was studying in Bangalore, and the city of Hubli happened to be in the belt of totality. So a group of us, students in the second year BSc, we decided we will just go to Hubli and watch the total solar eclipse. Quite surprisingly, our parents were, very supportive. And this was in 1980. We went, just a group of students, with no teacher with us. This was not a college-sponsored visit. It's just that we were interested. We were a group of students who would meet weekly and, discuss some scientific articles which had come out in the newspapers, or somebody had read in some of those, there were this lot of science journals which used to come out, not the professional journals, but for student and amateurs. So we would also read those, and we would meet once a week to have our own discussion, thinking, we had understood everything. But anyway, we said we will go and see the eclipse. And this is a picture of all of us at the Hubli station after having successfully watched the eclipse. So this was my first encounter with astronomy. And somehow it just happened that, I joined IAA as a PhD student in the year 1983. And in the initial years, I was involved with a calibration of an instrument. I I somehow liked working with instruments and in the lab, for example, in my BSc or in the MSc days. I think I was lucky to have been at the time when we were allowed to test the instruments and fiddle around with it. I don't know how many colleges, how many schools allow that these days, but we were lucky that we would actually set up the instrument and then do the measurements ourselves. So I loved doing that. And when I joined IAEA, there was one person, Dr. S.K. Jain, who was developing a new instrument. So I talked to him and I worked with him in the lab in calibrating the instrument. And I took that instrument up to the telescope to use it and continue with the calibration, what we call as yawn sky calibration. So that was my first independent observing run, and I was mighty excited with that. I was lucky to have several mentors, and the person who comes first to my mind is Dr. Sunetra Giridhar. She has been one of those quiet, inspiring people, which I think we need those kind of people in every organization, who don't make a big show of what they do, but who are very inspiring just by the nature of their work and by their very presence. So she introduced me to spectroscopy, stellar spectroscopy. She introduced me to this field, which I grew to love, and today that's what I do. That's what I continue to do. I did my PhD on objects called novae, which are basically exploding stars, for which I used the 1 meter telescope at the Vainu Observatory. Graduated from the ancient photographic plates to CCDs as detectors. Even as a student, I was involved in developmental activities. I was involved in the development of a spectroscopic data reduction software and in the calibration of the CCDs being used at Vainu Observatory. I was lucky that I joined an organization like IAEA, where even students were treated at the same level as the faculty, and we were encouraged to do what we wanted to do. This was very important for my growth as a scientist. I did a postdoctoral stint for 4 years at Ayuka, where I was introduced to new areas of science. And at Ayuka, I learned to other skills also. Like I was involved in setting up Ayuka's next generation internet system. And this was in the year 1992, when internet was not commonly used. It was still restricted to very few institutes. Ayuka also gave me experience with teaching and initiation into administrative activities. It led to an overall growth in addition to the expansion of the science I was doing. Came back to IAEA in 1995 and continued there until 2021 when I superannuated. I continued to be associated with IAEA. Apart from science and teaching, I've held various roles, administrative roles in IAEA, been involved in several developmental activities. The most important ones has been my association with the Indian Astronomical Observatory, beginning with the analysis of the site characterization data when I joined back in 1995, to being involved with the 2 meter Himalayan Chandra telescope in the development of its instruments, and in the commissioning and the science verification of the telescope and the instruments. From these initial association, I went on to managing the entire operations of the observatory and became the professor in charge of the Indian Astronomical Observatory until I retired. In addition to the 2 meter Himalayan Chandra telescope, I was involved in an international collaboration to observe the transients. Transients are objects which just pop up in the sky, like the novae, the supernovae, the gamma ray burst sources. There's this international collaboration which is which has the acronym GROWTH, which is the global relay of observatories watching transients happen. So here I show the various participants from all over the globe, as you can see. So this basically is a network of observatories across the globe. And as a part of this project from the Indian side, we got funds to establish a small telescope, a 70 centimeter wide field telescope. But what is unique about this telescope is that it is fully robotic, and the entire operations making the telescope fully robotic was all completely developed by the involvement of students from IIT Bombay and from IIA. Even today, the day-to-day operations of the telescope and the development of the pipeline, the data analysis software is all completely done by students. These are students who are doing their masters or their PhD at IIT Bombay. And some of them are also undergrad students who come in for a short time for their project, and they work on some aspect of this development. So there's this heavy involvement of students in this project, not just for the development, including in the science. There are already some 5 PhD students who are involved in this project. And I've also been involved in the 30-meter telescope project, an international project of which India is a partner. This is to set up one of the largest telescopes in the world, a 30-meter diameter telescope, which is proposed to be set up in Mauna Kea in Hawaii. India is a member of this international project, along with Caltech and the universities of California from US, Canada, Japan, and China. So I was a core member of the India TMT, was involved in the initial proposal and DPR writing. I was the co-chair of the TMT International Science Advisory Committee and the convener of the Transients group of the TMT International Science Development Teams, and contributed to the detailed science report. But what I really enjoyed being part of this telescope project is that as the head of the India TMT Optics group, I played a major role in the establishment of a state-of-the-art optics facility for polishing large optics. It's a unique one-of-its-kind facility in the country, which is established in one of the campuses of IIA. And I've also been very actively involved with the astronomy community at large in India and in the International Astronomical Union, the Indian Astronomical Society of India in particular. As you've already heard from Loveleen, I have been the president of the ASI. Earlier to that, prior to that, I was also the editor of the bulletin of the ASI, which was the scientific journal brought out by the ASI. So overall, it has been an exciting scientific journey for me. I've had the fortune of using almost all the observing facilities in the country. It was a journey that began with optical observations, moved on to including radio when the GMRT became available, and with the availability of India's first space observatory, AstroSat, I also used the X-ray and the ultraviolet data. I've had involvement in the development of various astronomical facilities, been engaged in administrative roles, contributed to the community. And not to say that it's all been rosy. I've had my share of ups and downs, frustrations and joys. But I would, I only look at the positive aspect of my entire career, and I find that overall it's been an extremely fulfilling career. I've had many people that have traveled with through this journey of mine, and I thank them all. So to end, what I would like to say is that whether you choose to be a researcher, a developer, or a science communicator, just enjoy what you're doing. Learn to interact with people outside your group. Be aware of the outside world. understand what's happening outside what you're doing. Most important, remember that there'll be situations that will trouble you. Never let these situations bog you down. It's very important that you rise above these situations. Forget them, but don't forget them also. Why am I saying don't forget it? Because these are learning experiences. By going through those situations, you need to learn how to progress. You may have people who hurt you, okay, but it doesn't, it doesn't help to have a grudge against such people. You just need to understand that's how they are and move forward. But since you have understood how they are, you know how to deal with them. Now, this is very important as you grow in your career, as you take on more and more responsibilities and, greater roles in your career. It's extremely important. It's very important for you to take time for yourself. You need to maintain a good balance between your personal and professional life. And if possible, just keep them separated as much as you can. Most important, be kind to yourself. You are important more than anybody. Just remember that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this inspirational talk. And now the platform is open for questions. बच्चे आप जो भी questions पूछना चाहते हैं, please raise your hands. We will unmute you. या फिर आप chat में post कर सकते हो.
I can stop sharing my presentation, right?
Yes, ma'am, please.
In between, till the children are thinking about their questions, I would just like to inform you that we at Pushpa Gujral Science City have a night sky watching program.
Ah, wonderful.
Where especially students who come to visit PGSC, if they stay over for the night, and if it is a good clear sky, we try to arrange night sky for the night sky watching programs for them. Our team also visits schools. Of course, it's paid because we are a self-sustainable organization. But we also go to schools, and many schools do invite us from time to time, where we take the little telescopes which we have, we carry them, and our team does the program, try to show them the rings of the Saturn and simple things like that. So it's primarily the objective of the program is to develop a love for astronomy. And I think it is these little interventions, like you said, you went to watch the solar eclipse.
Right.
So it is these little interventions which actually help you identify your interest.
Yeah.
And sometimes takes you forward.
True.
So we are trying to do that at our level as well.
That's true. I mean, you never know what can inspire you. So it is very important
Yes.
that you get a good exposure. And aajkal, you have a lot of exposure to a variety of things.
Yes.
जब हम लोग उस age पे थे, तो we didn't have so many.
बिल्कुल.
Right. So aajkal, they have a lot of like avenues where they can seek out.
And I totally agree with you, because that was a time when, like now, parents allow children to come to school in the evening.
Right.
They allow them to come to stay at the school till late night. At our times, that was just unheard of.
Oh no, I can tell you an experience I had because I used to observe in the night. When I was doing my PhD, and at Kavalur, sometimes we would get visitors, the so-called important visitors who would come to see through the telescope or whatever it is. So I had this experience once of this gentleman coming. I mean, I won't name his profession or his position. So he came there, and in the dome, it's all very dark when we are observing. So he didn't know like who was there inside. And I was up on a ladder looking through the eyepiece and, taking my data. So he comes up and there are these night assistants. So he says that he wants to see through the telescope. He is so-and-so, he wants to see through the telescope. So the assistant tells him, sir, the exposure is going on. After that, you can talk to madam. So I think when they used the word madam, he was a little taken aback. Okay. So after the exposure, I come down and then, I kind of introduce myself. So he says that, oh, how old are you? That was his first question. So I just smiled. I didn't respond to the age. Then he asked me कि तुम्हारे साथ और कौन है? I said मैं अकेली हूँ. यहाँ पर जो है assistants है और मैं हूँ. नहीं घर से कौन है? मम्मी आई है? I said नहीं. Why should mommy come with me? I'm an adult. So his response was, how can your parents allow you to work in the night with men around?
Yes.
I wouldn't allow my
I
daughter.
totally
So मैं बोली my parents understand what I'm doing. They appreciate what I'm doing. And they know what I do. So they have encouraged me to do this. That was my response. Uske baad he didn't speak a word. He just quietly said he wants to see something, saw and walked off. So
I totally agree with you. We all have had similar experiences. I chose in my master's, my specialization as forest ecology. And in the forest ecology section, there were 15 boys and I was the only girl. And there were a lot of eyebrows raised. कि इतने सारे लड़कों के बीच में एक लड़की सारा दिन जंगल में जाएगी. But yes, we did it.
yeah, I know.
So, yes, we all have had similar
Exactly.
experiences because that was the time when all this was happening. In my university, when I was doing research, girls were allowed to sit in the research lab between 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Beyond that, if you have to sit, somebody from your family should come. Father was busy, didn't have a brother, and that somebody has to be a male member. So I didn't have a brother. So my neighbor's son used to come and sit with me. He was younger to me, and sometimes I used to tell him कि मुझे तुमको protect करना पड़ेगा, कभी कुछ हो जाता है तो. But then that was the rule.
Yeah, so
I think we have some
we have
questions
a lot
from
of
students.
questions in the chat
yeah,
box.
that's right.
Please,
So,
please.
I
There's
can
a
see a
question
lot
from
of people say they have seen stars in the sky and things like that. I'm very happy. And, I think probably it helps to not be in very big cities where you don't see the night sky at all.
Yeah.
I suppose you're all very lucky that you can actually see the night sky.
So Vishali
Somebody was asked, what degree should one pursue after 12th for a career in astrophysics? I would say you do, as I said earlier, and you do a BSc with make sure you have physics and maths as your subjects, and an MSc, preferably in physics. After, if you want to do a PhD in astrophysics subsequently. But as I've also told you, if you're interested in getting into engineering and then come into astrophysics, you can do that also. Today, it is possible that you can do that. Okay. And then somebody has asked, how did you get interested in astronomy? I think astronomy as a subject is something that everybody is interested in. And I always enjoyed, reading something or the other about science, which used to come in the newspapers when I was in school. I used to really enjoy doing that. And somewhere, I think watching the total solar eclipse triggered the interest, and I was lucky to get into IA after that. So that's how, I got interested in astronomy. I see a few people have raised hands.
Yes, ma'am. Kashti, please unmute yourself. Hanji, Kashti, please.
Hi, good evening.
Ma'am, I'm from Science itself. And
Akashdeep,
India has already explained.
your audio is not very clear.
Can you please write in the chat?
Chat पे लिख दीजिए आप.
Just a moment.
हाँ.
Now I hope now I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. My simple question is already DG ma'am has explained you that we at Science City we do organize night sky shows and we do visit the schools, various schools in Punjab and in the North India. And I just wanted to know that whether as per the geographical location of Kapurthala or the Science City, can we develop an observatory over here at Science City?
Yeah, you can.
Would it be worth?
Yes, it would be worthwhile. Not that it wouldn't be. I mean, for instance, Bangalore has the Astronomers Association, which has a small telescope in the planetarium, and they also, the Bangalore planetarium is bang in the middle of the city, but they still organize a lot of shows and skywatch events. Whenever there is an astronomical event, they do it. So it would certainly be useful to, if you're interested, it would be useful to do that.
Can we have some sort of funding from somewhere? Because ICT itself, it's a self-sustaining institution, so we do need the funding for the same. Is it possible to get it from somewhere, as well as technical support?
See, technical support can be provided. And as I said, we have the Astronomical Society of India has an outreach group, and that group can provide the technical support if you're interested in setting up. Funding, I wouldn't know like where you can get from, and there are various avenues, including, I think you can look at the CSR options. A lot of corporates, you could do that because this is primarily for education and outreach. So you might be able to get from some of these companies which have the CSR funds, right? You could look at that also.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Who is Sri Lakshmi? Has hand raised.
Yeah, ma'am. Very good evening, ma'am. I'm Sri Lakshmi, Indian Forest Service Officer from Telangana. In fact, I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to present in this program, and former DG Jude Sekar sir has shared your link with me. And first of all, I would like to congratulate you, ma'am, Neelima ma'am and Anupama ma'am, for being a great inspiration to women and give clear vision that women are not just a part and they are inevitable for growth of any sector, ma'am. Seeing your experiences, ma'am, I would like to add the forestry sector, the present state of forestry sector and women, ma'am. From past 10 years, ma'am, in the recruitments, if we see, women candidates are being selected more. They are showing interest in even this hardest part of this job. And when we come to the results also, women were very, I can say, outpass their male counterparts in going to any challenge, the protection of forests. I think there is a bright future for women because there are people who are like you, who are leading this. And I'm very grateful, ma'am, that you are giving such seminars and inspiring the ladies and on the girl candidates, like how you are explaining your experiences. Those are very great takeoffs for future, ma'am. And thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Sri Lakshmi. I think I'm kind of fascinated by people like you who work in the forests and are part of all these environmental activities and things like that. I do know of some people who work in this field, I mean, who are not in the IFS, but who are sort of associated with I mean, I know a young girl who is a vet who works in Mumbai, and she actually specializes in treating the wild animals.
Yes, yes.
So she goes into the forest and then she does that. And she's just about 30 or so. You know, I'm kind of admire such people like you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, and in fact, a lot of women, there are a number of women hofs in the forest services now,
Mm,
the head of forest force.
right.
A number of them are women these days.
So there's a question from Harmeet Kaur. As the first woman to head a science center, what changes have you made in your organization? I think this is from Nilima ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, it's an interesting question. Well, I would like to say that the major change which you would see is primarily I have tried to make the whole campus a bit more women-friendly. I mean, whether there is a male head or a female head, it really wouldn't matter as far as galleries are concerned and the technical development is concerned. But then there are a number of things. For example, we have made it more women-friendly, more women-centric. We have started a women technology park here, where we are trying to work with the women who live around the Science City. Probably they have never had the chance to even enter Science City before that. But we have started some programs where we not only provide them training, we are also offering them incubation facilities so that they can move further. And to them, entry to Science City is free. I mean, it's a part of the program, so they can look around and they can get inspired and learn a lot of science. We have started helping them use machines like a cow dung log machine or a computerized embroidery is something which we try to teach them at the Women Technology Park. So as far as women are concerned, yes. And I think we have also added a lot of environmental studies besides the other galleries which we have developed. Because as a woman, I can understand that many a times girls find physics and mathematics as difficult subjects somehow. So we have set up a mathematics gallery, which is a very, very interactive gallery, and all the difficult theorems which you wouldn't understand just by writing on a paper, you can actually do them practically at Science City. We have also set up an electricity gallery. It is yet to be open to the public. It's a very, very recent setup. So there also we have tried to explain the various nuances of this branch of physics, where on how does it impact a common man. Also, a lot of things which probably you might not understand otherwise, if when you see them, you not only believe in them, you also remember them. We have set up a spark theater, which is an interesting add-on to the electricity gallery, where you can actually see a spark being generated. So how does it happen? How does it impact? All these things are explained there. We are coming up with an ecosystems gallery to introduce all of you to the various kinds of ecosystems in the world and try to sensitize everybody towards sustainable development and towards achieving the SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These are the 3-4 major things. We have made some structural changes to make the whole campus a bit more women-friendly.
That's extremely nice to hear. It's, I especially like what you said about, having a gallery for maths. Let me tell all the young girls who are there, mathematics and physics is not difficult, or
Yes.
easy it's like any other subject. And there's nothing that women can't do or achieve. As long as you put your mind to it, you can. In fact, some of the best astronomers are women, have been women. And I would say that astronomy is one field where the contribution of women is recognized much better than other fields. Not that it is, at a level where you can say that everything is hunky-dory, but it's much better than most other fields, I would say. And particularly, I think in India, among the scientific community at large, the women have had a better deal, is what I would say.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Women have had a better deal here in India.
So any other questions, please raise your hand. There's a message in the chat from Navreet Jabowal. Thank you, ma'am. It's a grateful meet. Thanks for inspired to all. And Khushpreet has written, Nilima ma'am and Anupama ma'am, you are both great inspiration for women and girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope there are no more questions. And it's time to wrap up. Now I request Director Science City, Dr. Rajesh Grover, to please propose vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Loveleen. And good afternoon, everybody. And it's my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks at this occasion. And we are really honored today to have with us Dr. Anupama, former Dean and Senior Professor at the Indian Institute of Astrophysics and the first women president of the Astronomical Society of India. We are really with us this afternoon and delivering a very interesting talk at the occasion, especially motivating the young girls to identify their potential and move forward in the fields of scientific research and science administration and science communication. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being with us and sharing the words of wisdom and gracing this occasion. And I also expressed my gratitude to Dr. Nilima Jairath, the Director General of Pushpa Gujarat Science City, for her eye-opening remarks at the occasion. And I really take proud in mentioning here that she is one of the fine scientists who are heading these five institutions. Out of these, three are being headed by the women scientists. And we really take pride of being guided by her. And we remain grateful to you, ma'am, and thank you for always being there and guiding us and leading us from the front. And I also acknowledge the cooperation and perfect logistics support which we received from my colleagues to organize this webinar. And I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to organize this webinar. And last but not the least, I sincerely thank our participants for joining us and their patience listening and interacting with the expert. In the end, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anupama ji. It has really been great interacting with you and listening to your talk. It was really very nice. Thank you. And I would also like to thank COVID for that matter. It has helped bring a lot of people from faraway places to Science City. We have been able to interact with them. We have been able to talk to them. I mean, it has taught us new ways of communication.
That's true. Yeah.
Great. Then thank